One.
Hi everyone. It's good to be with you again. It's Jim Gordon. So if you're tuning in to be with me, you're in the right place. And I'm glad to be back with you. Last week I was in the middle of our online training in mind-body medicine. Really quite an extraordinary experience. We had about 400 people apply, 400 qualified people applied who wanted to bring the lessons that I've been teaching here in these webinars, the material that I present in a comprehensive form in the transformation, and the basis of all the work that we've been doing around the world for 30 years. People have come to our training wanting to learn it for themselves and share it with their community. So I was in the middle of that training, and am always was this time, as always, quite astonished by what unfolds. It's never like life itself. It's never exactly what you think it is going to be. And it is always enormously fulfilling for me and for our faculty and staff and for everyone who comes to the training. So we can talk a little bit more about that later, but that's where I was last Friday. I'm here now. We didn't do a webinar, but this is a time to respond to the questions that have come in over the last couple of weeks. And if questions come to you while I'm speaking now, I may have time toward the end of this session to respond to those questions as well. One of the requests that a number of you have made is for me to speak a little bit more about meditation and then to do a somewhat longer meditation than we usually do in these Facebook Live sessions or indeed in the webinars. So I'm going to talk a little bit about meditation, and then instead of doing the brief opening meditation we usually do, we're going to do a longer one. And once again, I'll go through the physiology of how meditation works on our body and our mind and how it brings us back into balance. A little bit of talk first. Remember, there are three basic categories of meditation. Concentrative meditation, that is focusing on a word or words, a sound, an image. Concentrative meditations are part of every religious and spiritual tradition on the planet that I know of. And in the monotheistic religions, repetitive prayers can be understood as concentrative meditations. So, Our Father, or Illallahu Illallah, Shema Yisrael. And if we go to India, Hare Krishna, also repetitive prayer. These are concentrative meditations. We're focusing on the words or the breath or the sounds or the images. Very, very useful, very calming. We're going to do one a little bit later. Second category is mindfulness or awareness meditation. Vipassana, Vipassana is the prototype. It's a meditation, means awareness. It was created by Prince Siddhartha Gautama, the man whom we call the Buddha. And the Buddha means the awakened one who woke up to what's actually happening in human life, which I'm hoping that we're all hoping to do, is to wake up to what's actually going on. And as he did that for himself and he discovered suffering, modern terms, we use the word trauma often enough, the pain, the injury that comes to all of us sooner or later, he developed a method, the method of Vipassana, the method of awareness, of becoming aware of our thoughts, feelings, and sensations as they arise, and relaxing with them. And then he and his followers for the last 2,500 years have brought this awareness into all the ordinary activities of our lives, whether it's cooking or walking or cleaning or making love, uh, doing an assignment, tending to children. And that's where this emphasis on mindfulness comes from. It goes back to Siddhartha Gautama's discovery of the crucial importance in relieving suffering and relieving trauma of mindfulness. Third kind of meditation, the oldest kind on the planet, is expressive meditation. So shaking and dancing, which we've done in earlier webinars, laughing, shouting, looking in a mirror and saying yes and no, chanting, jumping up and down, whirling. These are all expressive meditations. They are enormously useful, especially if we've recently experienced trauma or we're dealing with the kind of somewhat suppressed and reawakened trauma that so many of us are experiencing during this COVID-19 pandemic. Because you remember that present trauma will often awaken memories and re-experiencing of previous trauma. All three of these forms of meditation are enormously useful. And within these three categories, there are hundreds of different kinds. I think we'll do more extended meditations in subsequent Facebook Lives as well as in the webinars. But right now, I want to focus on the one that I most often begin with, which is soft belly breathing. I hope many of you have been doing some soft belly breathing during these last weeks. It's the simplest way that I know of to bring myself and others into physiological and psychological balance. So what we're going to do for the next 10 or 11 minutes is we're going to do soft belly breathing. And as we do it, I'm going to take you through the physiology of how this is working, and then show you how it can be used, how it can be an instrument to create relaxation in all parts of our physical and emotional and intellectual being, and also indicating how it can be enormously important in helping us connect with other people. So let's begin by sitting comfortably. And I'm changing my position. You maybe find yourself changing your position. The one I was in was comfortable for a while, but I realized I don't want to stay in that one for 10 minutes with my foot up on the rung of this chair in front of me. Let me just sit with both feet planted on the floor, feeling my connection with the floor and with the earth underneath the floor, feeling my connection to the back of my chair. I'm leaning a little bit back, and to the seat of my chair, my seat on the seat of this chair. So allow your breathing to deepen. And if you feel comfortable, close your eyes. This is a wonderful way to eliminate external stimulation and distractions. Breathing deeply in through your nose and out through your mouth. Perhaps saying to yourself, soft as you breathe in, and belly as you breathe out. So you're concentrating on the breath and on the word soft as you breathe in through your nose, and belly as you breathe out through your mouth. And while you're doing this, feel your belly relaxing and softening. So breathing slowly and deeply like this, in through the nose and out through the mouth with your belly soft and relaxed. More air goes to the bottom of our lungs where there's better oxygen exchange. So more oxygen enters from the lungs into the bloodstream, and that oxygen feeds all the cells in our bodies. Breathing slowly and deeply like this, in through the nose and out through the mouth, with our bellies soft and relaxed, activates the vagus nerve. You may remember vagus is spelled V-A-G-U-S, and vagus means wandering in Latin. And this big nerve wanders up from our belly through our chest, back to our central nervous system, to our brain. When it's activated, it slows heart rate, lowers blood pressure, relaxes the big muscles in our bodies, and improves our digestion. The vagus nerve is the antidote to the fight or flight response that's activated in all vertebrates when we fear for our lives or we're anxious, or in humans when we have emotional distress. The fight or flight response is activated. The fight or flight response is part of the sympathetic nervous system, one half of the autonomic or automatic nervous system. It's the half that is the accelerator, puts us into fight or flight. Breathing slowly and deeply, in through the nose and out through the mouth with our belly soft and relaxed, activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the vagus nerve, which is the brakes. Sympathetic nervous system is fight or flight. Parasympathetic is rest and digest. So when we're breathing like this, slowly and deeply, in through our nose and out through our mouth, we're quieting our body, lowering blood pressure and heart rate, relaxing the big muscles, improving digestion. We're also calming activity in the center of the brain responsible for fear and anger. It's called the amygdala, A-M-Y-G-D-A-L-A, and it's in the emotional brain. When we breathe slowly and deeply in through the nose and out through the mouth, we're quieting that fear and anger. And at the same time, we're stimulating activity in the frontal part of our cerebral cortex, in areas responsible for thoughtful decision-making and self-awareness and compassion for ourselves and others. And as we continue to breathe slowly and deeply, in through the nose and out through the mouth, with our belly soft and relaxed, the activated vagus nerve makes contact with other nerves, other cranial nerves, nerves that come out of our head, that are responsible for facial expression and speech. So when we're breathing slowly and deeply, in through the nose and out through the mouth with our belly soft and relaxed, we're quieting our bodies, calming our minds, and making it easier to read other people's facial expressions, to tune into their speech, to connect with them. And we're putting ourselves in a state in which it's easier to think clearly, to make good decisions, to be self-aware, and to feel compassion for ourselves and other people. All this with breathing slowly and deeply in through the nose and out through the mouth. As we continue to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth, with our bellies soft and relaxed, all the muscles in our bodies begin to relax. And I invite you to feel that as you exhale. Feeling the muscles relax in your belly and your pelvis and your buttocks as you exhale. Feeling the relaxation in your legs and feet with each exhalation. Feeling the muscles relax all up and down your back as you exhale. I stretched a little there. Oh, feeling those muscles relax. Feeling the muscles now relax in your chest and shoulders. Feel the muscles relax in your arms and hands as you exhale. Feel the muscles relax in your neck and face and head. Feel your whole body relax with each exhalation. To encourage this process, say to yourself, soft as you breathe in, and belly as you breathe out. Focusing on those words, on the breath, and on the feeling of your belly being soft and relaxed. If thoughts come, let them come, notice them, let them go. Gently bring your mind back to soft belly. Okay, slowly, gently open your eyes. Let your attention come back in the room. Welcome back. Notice how you feel. Notice if there's any difference from before you began doing this and now. I notice I'm much more relaxed, more present, more focused. Can feel myself sitting a little straighter. I also noticed I have a bit of a place of tension in my back that did not relax. So that reminds me that I need to do some more stretching and maybe putting my arms around my knees and lying down on a yoga mat and rocking back and forth to give my back a massage and my own sort of auto chiropractic adjustment. But mostly I notice I'm more here and more present, and I'm aware of something I need to attend to. So pay attention after we've talked, after we finish this session. You may want to write down what happened. I would encourage all of you to do soft belly breathing. Research that's been done, I've discussed this some before, shows that people who do similar meditations for 20 minutes a day on a regular basis can make significant changes in how their brains function, creating more integrated functioning, decreasing activity in the amygdala, that center of fear and anger, increasing activity in the frontal cortex, increasing activity in the hippocampus, which helps to mediate and moderate stress and is very important for memory. And in addition, simply 20 minutes a day can change the structure of your brain, adding new gray matter, new cells in the frontal cortex and new cells in the hippocampus. And if 20 minutes is too long, start with 2 or 3 minutes, 3 times a day, something like that. The whole idea of meditation is to bring us into the relaxed moment-to-moment awareness, to allow us not merely to be meditative and relaxed when we're sitting doing soft belly breathing or mindfulness meditation or transcendental meditation, but to bring that relaxed moment-to-moment awareness into every aspect of our lives. And I'd like to hear from you. If you're beginning to do this and you're doing it fairly regularly, I'd like to hear so I can respond in future Facebook live sessions, what it's like, what difference it's making, and also what difficulties come up. Okay, I'm going to move into questions now. Oh, one thing that I want to say to you before I move into questions is that the session next week, I'm going to have a number of guests on in these sessions in the weeks and months ahead. And people who I enjoy talking to, people from whom I have something to learn, with whom I want to share my experience, and also people who I believe you will find extremely interesting and instructive and I think inspirational as well. And next week, it's going to be Bob Roth. Bob is the CEO of the David Lynch Foundation. David Lynch, of course, is the creator of Twin Peaks and many other remarkable film achievements. And David Lynch is a longtime practitioner of transcendental meditation. And Bob Roth, his teacher and one of the sort of major teachers of transcendental meditation all over the world for many years. And he's the author of a book, a really lovely book called From Strength to Stillness. And so Bob will be on next Friday, and we'll be having doing a webinar, and which you'll be able to see. And then he and I will be doing a Facebook Live. Right now, let me come into the questions that are coming up. I want to start with, you talk a lot about restoring balance in your mind and body. How do I know when I have achieved this balance? It's a great question. And I think, first of all, this is a relative matter. We want to come more and more into balance. And as we come into balance, one of the ways that we know that we're in balance is, first of all, we feel generally easy with ourselves, easy in as we walk around in our bodies, more easy as we interact with other people. Focusing is generally pretty easy. Having a sense of empathy and compassion for other people comes easily. We're able to connect with other people and enjoy those connections. And if you think back, all of that comes out of the physiology, out of the biology of soft belly breathing and of other meditations as well. So when we are in harmony with ourselves, when we're not anxious and agitated and irritable and ready for a fight, and we can focus and our bodies are kind of still and not tense all over, and we can eat peacefully, we're in balance. The other thing is about being in balance is that you notice when inevitably you're thrown out of balance, because things do come up that throw us off. And if we're practicing in a regular way, if we're more accustomed to being in balance, we can bring ourselves back into balance more easily. Could be with slow, deep, soft belly breathing, could be with shaking and dancing, could be with mindful eating or mindful walking or doing physical exercise, because when we're in balance, we have access to the great gifts of our imagination and intuition. So if we just pause for a second and say, okay, what do I do about feeling out of balance? What do I do about this disturbance that's coming up? And we get the answer, and we're no longer preoccupied. So I know, because my intuition, my sense of connection to my body is telling me I need to do this rocking back and forth on my yoga mat. That's what my back needs when I have the time. Okay, let me move on to some other questions. I know a lot of people who are adopting dogs and cats during COVID. Is there any scientific research to show that animals can help with loneliness? The answer is yes, yes, a very emphatic yes. If you look at the chapter on pets and animals in the transformation in my book, I cite all of the research, well, not all. I cite some of the most important research on the beneficial effect of having pets. The chapter is called Animal Therapy. And what some of the most striking research was done on people who had heart attacks. And what was discovered is that those people who had pets, who had heart attacks, were significantly likely not only to do better psychologically or physiologically, they were much more likely to be alive longer than those people who didn't have pets. Striking piece of research. Take a look at it. It's there in the transformation in the chapter on animal therapy. Other research has shown that people who have pets have less anxiety. Their mood improves. And one fascinating study showed that autistic kids who spent time with animals more easily related to humans. Very interesting. And animal therapy and understanding this healing power of animals, the York retreat in England in the 19th century, they had this was on a kind of a farm-like setting, and there were lots of animals around for the people who had very significant psychological disorders. And Benjamin Rush, the founder, sort of the daddy of American psychiatry, recognized the importance of animals, as did Florence Nightingale. And so did Sigmund Freud. I mean, we think of Sigmund Freud as being very serious and distant, but he wrote that when his little dog, Kofi, was in the consulting room, His psychoanalytic patients seemed much happier and more relaxed when they were simply alone with him. So Kofi added something that was very healing for people. So yes, pets have a profound therapeutic value, and it's not only pets, it's animals in general. So I don't have a pet right now, but every day I look at the squirrels who are cavorting outside on my deck and at the birds and the trees, and it just brightens my mood. So check it out, everybody. Take advantage. At times in my house, when I had even having a goldfish, I found, oh, it's really nice to say, come into the kitchen. I had a goldfish in a little bowl, say hi to the goldfish in the morning. So pets are beautiful. I think I mentioned in the transformation, when my son suffered a significant loss, a family friend who died, it was very important for him. He borrowed his godparents' golden retriever and slept with the dog all the time, and it made a huge difference. So yes, please, and it's wonderful, of course, to go to the shelter and get rescue animals. Okay. Is there a connection between cortisol levels and trauma? Cortisol is a major stress hormone secreted by the adrenal gland. When we have suffered trauma in the acute stage, after when we're in a state of fight or flight, or we're completely overwhelmed and go into freeze, often the cortisol level will be way up and will cause damage to our brain. It goes up because our bodies are reacting as if there were a predator chasing us. And we need that added energy. We need added sugar. We need added fluid in our bloodstream so our heart and lungs function maximally. That's why the cortisol goes up. The problem is not that acute response to trauma. It's when it continues and the cortisol level and the stress level stays high. Now, at a certain point, if the stress goes on, if the effects of trauma go on and on and on, then the adrenal gland, which was functioning super maximally, starts to function less well and becomes depleted. And at that point, the cortisol level may be down. At first, researchers were very surprised when they saw people who'd been traumatized, who were under long-term stress, who had cortisol levels that were low, but then it became clear sort of physiologically why that was happening. So it's possible if you've been under stress and you've been traumatized for some period of time, your cortisol level may be high or it may be low. So you may be in a state of agitation or you may be exhausted. And sometimes cortisol can fluctuate, and both of those conditions can kind of come and go. So cortisol is an indicator, but it's a variable indicator. That is, it can mean low cortisol may mean adrenal exhaustion, doesn't necessarily mean you're calm. And so you have to look at what is the state of being of the person who has these laboratory levels of cortisol. And doing meditation brings the cortisol back into balance. If it's depleted, it helps to raise it. If it's excessive, it helps to bring down the level of cortisol. Okay. And again, in the transformation, if you look at some of the early chapters, I think particularly chapter 2, where I talk about the biology of trauma and stress, you'll find references and a good deal of research in there. Okay. I often hear about the importance of the meditative mind. What does this mean, and how can I work toward concept? Well, I'm one of those people who talks about a meditative mind. Just, like the old joke about how do I get to Carnegie Hall? A young musician's asking. And the answer is practice, practice, practice. So you cultivate the meditative mind, no surprise here, by meditating. by doing soft belly breathing or a mindfulness meditation or expressive meditation. That's how we cultivate the meditative mind. So these tools and techniques make it possible, and all we have to do is appreciate the results and allow ourselves to move into this awareness all the time. And when we find ourselves straying from it, when we find that our mind is agitated and confused or anxious or depressed, is to use the different meditative techniques to reawaken our meditative mind. So we need to bring what we're doing, we need to practice, we need to bring the experience that we're achieving through the practice into all of our life. And then when we find ourselves off the wagon, falling off the meditative mind wagon, just to become aware of it and to use one or another of the techniques to bring us back on that wagon again. Okay, why is sharing your experiences with other people so powerful in the healing process? And how does it affect your brain? Going back to what I've spoken about earlier in these webinars is that we are wired as social beings, that our species evolved in bands, B-A-N-D-S, 30 to 50 people living together, working, playing, talking, doing meditations, fighting wars, hanging out with each other, caring for children. We are biologically hardwired to be with other people. We learn through imitation of other people. We are sustained as children by our connections to other people. All the research that's been done by John Bowlby and Renee Spitz and others about attachment and the importance of that bond between the infant and the mother or other caregivers. And that without that bond, our brain and the rest of our body doesn't mature properly. The research that Renee Spitz did in the 1930s on hospitalism. He visited orphanages where the kids were perfectly well cared for physically, but they didn't have the love and the physical contact, the close physical contact with their caregivers. And those kids wasted away, and many of those kids died without that physical contact. So we need connection with other people. We need connection of all kinds. One of the great sadnesses of the pandemic that I have heard from many people, particularly from older people, is I can't touch anyone. There's nobody there. I'm so isolated. And one of the worst parts of the isolation is that there's no physical touch. So what we are built to connect with others, as I said, when we're in a relaxed state and we're functioning properly, it's parts of the frontal cortex, but also the cranial nerves are connecting up better, and we're able to relate to other people better. We're also able to be more compassionate because the frontal cortex is now online when we're relaxing and we're being with other people. So not only does it make it easier for us to be with other people, when we're in that state, we want to be with other people. And as we are with other people, this process of healing, of stimulating and regenerating parts of the frontal cortex, of engaging our cranial nerves, of enhancing the activity of the vagus nerve, all of these can then take place. So connect with other people. When it's safe, touch each other. Touch is so important to everyone. And look at each other. If you can't touch, then connect on Zoom or FaceTime. I've been doing a lot of that myself during the pandemic, much more than I ever did before. And I'm feeling just the pleasure of seeing my family members or my old friend's face. And It's just so, I'm sort of smiling with pleasure as I think about it. Okay. In my community, there's a lot of stigma attached to the words trauma and healing. How do we get around this to share everything you teach? Well, I understand what you're saying. Trauma, as I say, right at the beginning of the transformation, I'm keenly aware of this. People think, oh, these are terrible, terrible things. They just happen to other people, the people in the middle of wars, the people who've grown up in the most horrendously abusive and degraded and degrading family situations. That's not me. So I think the first thing to do is, if people are interested, is to share with them a different perspective and with compassion, because this is the general rule in our society as we think of trauma in the ways that I described, is to understand. And this is the understanding of all the great spiritual and religious traditions on the planet and of all indigenous people, is that trauma, which is a Greek word that means injury, comes to all of us sooner or later. If not early in life because we're growing up in a violent or impoverished community, or because our parents are neglectful or abusive, or because we have a congenital illness or a childhood illness, that's traumatic. Then in young adulthood or midlife, we also experience trauma. I don't know, people who are, think of trauma some kind of thing that happens to other people. Haven't they had experiences of being unhappy in love? My God, I remember the first breakup I had as a high school student. Oh my God, that was traumatizing. I didn't know the word, but I sure knew that I hurt, and I knew the content of my hurt, and and just how disappointed I was and bewildered and at times angry. I was traumatized. And think of what happens in marriages. Well over half of US marriages end in divorce. I don't know if I've ever seen or heard of a non-traumatic divorce. I know occasionally in the celebrity tabloids, they say, oh no, it's fine, we're the best of friends. It is possible to become the best of friends with your ex. I'm very good friends, best of friends with my ex, but it took a while. Doesn't mean the divorce wasn't traumatic. It was. And also in midlife, our parents may die or become very ill, and other people we care about. That is traumatic. And if trauma doesn't come at that point, it will surely come if we're fortunate enough to live to be old people. Our bodies become more frail. We lose loved ones. And we ourselves face the great trauma of our inevitable death. So trauma, I think we have to help people to understand that trauma is a part of life. If you want, you can encourage them to read The Transformation, where I think this is explained in detail. You can just say and share your own experience. This is very important with people. Share your own experience, just as I'm sharing a little bit of my experience with you here. Do the same. People may not be able to relate to the word trauma, but they can relate to you, and they can relate to your experience. Now, healing. I'm not quite sure what the problem with that word is. Maybe people think it's a little on the touchy-feely side. Perhaps it is. It's a fine old word derived from the Anglo-Saxon, and it's also very much related to the word whole, healing and wholeness. And healing is really about, I'm not sure what the problem is. We talk about wound healing easily. You think about a wound, you have you had a laceration, and the wound comes together. It heals as there is a physiological processes that bring about healing. Psychologically, we heal. We come together after we've experienced difficult times. We begin to recover our full range of feelings. We get over our hurt and our disillusionment. We feel more whole and more easily able to relate to other people. That's what healing is about. And I would say, if people object to the word, what is it they object to? And ask them with a spirit of inquiry, not of criticism and not of argument. Um, say helping people to feel better, helping them to feel more whole, more renewed, rejuvenated. Use whatever words are comfortable for people. And if a word is uncomfortable, acknowledge that discomfort and find out why they're uncomfortable. And you may need to use other words, and it's fine. Or use whatever words describe the process. And again, describe what's going on for you. So when I say that meditation helps me feel more present and more balanced, I say it really brings me into balance. My body relaxes and my mind quiets, and I feel more easily able to connect with other people. I can call that healing. I can call that just feeling better, feeling more capable, feeling more connected. So find words that people can appreciate. Okay. After 4 months of isolation, I'm starting to lose hope. What can I do to still find meaning and purpose in my daily life? I think, first of all, I want to acknowledge that 4 months of isolation is pretty overwhelming. For some people more than others. There is no stigma attached to it as far as I'm concerned. That kind of isolation is profoundly distressing to many, many people. So the first thing to note is you're not alone. I think that can be, I hope it's helpful, that so many people are telling me about their feelings of isolation, feelings of loneliness. I'm going to be doing a whole course on loneliness for Insight Timer sometime in the next few weeks. That'll go up because it's so important to people of all ages. One of the things about loneliness is that it is agitating. At least in my experience and my observation of many, many people, people get anxious when they're lonely. So, and then the more anxious they are, the lonelier they get. So it becomes a vicious cycle. So the first way to restore hope is to break up that vicious cycle. And again, this is back to meditation with one or several different kinds of meditation, and decide which one is most appropriate. If you're feeling a little bit anxious, it may be great just to do soft belly breathing. If you're feeling really tense and, oh no, I don't know if this is ever going to end and I'm in despair, shake and dance. Or if you're shut down and totally overwhelmed, get up and move your body. So the first piece is have some hope. Other people are feeling extremely lonely, very large numbers of people. Number two, give yourself an experience where you decrease the anxiety that feeds loneliness, that in turn feeds anxiety. And that experience will give you hope. I hope everyone understands what I'm saying. If you experience a shift and that you can make a difference in how you feel, that in itself will give you hope. And as you begin to feel a little bit of hope, as you feel a little bit more in physiological balance, you may want to use some of the other techniques that I've been teaching and sharing with you all these weeks to use your imagination. What do I need to do to find a little bit more meaning and purpose in my life? If those words apply, use those words. Or what can I do to feel better? And you may close your eyes and you may come up with different things at different times. So I'm lucky. I have many things in my life that give me meaning and purpose. Talking with you gives me meaning and purpose. but they're talking, reaching out to other people gives me meaning and purpose. Writing gives me meaning and purpose. So those are solutions to the conundrum of what gives me meaning and purpose. And if I just think for a minute, I know those. But in addition to finding meaning and purpose, find some pleasure too. Because what came to me is not only the aspects of my life that give me meaning and purpose, but I'm going to I have a little of that mozzarella cheese in my refrigerator. I'm going to have some of that with a couple of nice rice crackers, and I'm going to eat those. And that's going to be really satisfying to me. Or maybe a little bit later when I've done some other things, I've started to watch Alias with Jennifer Garner. I never noticed it before, but I look around on my what's available on Amazon Prime. This is not a commercial, but so I started watching it. I thought, oh, okay, I can't say it's the most intellectually stimulating fare, but it's kind of relaxing, kind of puts my mind in neutral. So and of course, then I look out at the squirrels and I look out at the birds. And this is a combination of pure pleasure, and it also reminds me of my connection to all of nature. So it's a very simple, pleasurable activity. And at the same time, it lends a sense of connection, and which in turn gives me a sense of meaning. I am a part of nature, and part of what I'm all about is doing my best to serve nature and to serve and preserve. Let me look and see what time it is. Oh my goodness, it's getting kind of late. So I think I'll respond to one more question. And then I'll come back to others. Please keep submitting questions. Next week, we'll respond to questions for the webinar that Bob Roth and I are doing. But if other things are coming up that are evoked by what I've been saying, or other things coming up in your life, please share those questions as well. And then Bob and I can both respond to them. So one final question. What is the most important thing we all can do to ensure that racial justice remains a part of the conversation in this country? It's a beautiful question. We've just finished our national training program, and it was just an extraordinary experience. This is the first 5-day segment. And it was wonderful to be in a small group with people of other races, people who've had all kinds of experience of racial injustice. Native Americans, Black people, brown people, other white people, red people, Indians, American Indians, Asian, everybody. We're all in the small group and in the large group together. So and we had an opportunity to be with each other, to listen to each other, to tune into each other's experience, and to be appreciative of the uniqueness of each person's experience and of how that individual experience now is connected to historical forces. So whether it was an African American talking about the legacy of slavery as it had come to her through her grandparents and parents, or a Native American talking about the experience of being dismissed and regarded as second class, or a Jewish American talking about her family's experience of the Holocaust. We were able to sit with each other, to listen to each other, to appreciate each unique experience, to appreciate our differences, and then simply by sitting and listening to each other, appreciate our commonalities. And so when a young Black man drew a drawing of his greatest problem, and there were tears falling down his face, and he said, my regular drawing of my face, it's the happy face I have to put on to get along in this world. But inside, I'm hurting so much. And then the next person who wanted to share was a somewhat older, not much older than he, but somewhat older, white professional she said, I have exactly the same drawings. Growing up in my family, I learned that I had to be the good girl. I had to learn to please everyone. I had to put on a good face. But inside, so often I'm hurting. So this beautiful sense of possibility. So whether you're in one of our groups, and we have online mind body groups that are going on as well, or obviously coming to our trainings, which you can read about on the website, or you're just in the world, you're just paying attention to people on the TV, you're just reading a book by somebody from another racial or ethnic group. Just relax. Pay attention to that person. Pay attention to that person's unique experience. Right now, I'm rereading for about the 10th time James Baldwin's The Fire Next Time and recommending it to other people. Read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, about his experience in Auschwitz and the concentration camp. Read other books by by people who are different from yourself, and just relax and come to know them better. So that's a beautiful way. But even more important is to, and this is back to the meditative mind, bring yourself again and again into the meditative mind. Live in this moment to moment awareness. That is the way you will appreciate more easily in every moment everyone you meet. And that is how you will know how to and when to and with whom to enter into conversation. And one of the things that came up again and again in our training, which is such a beautiful reminder, is that if we can move into this meditative, compassionate space, we will be able to enter conversations that are not filled with blame and guilt and justification and accusation, that we'll be able to simply be in those conversations with curiosity and with compassion. And that is going to be ultimately what advances racial justice and mutual understanding. And that attitude, even more importantly than all the mechanisms that we develop where we work or in our communities, that attitude, that approach, that sort of compassionate awareness, that curiosity, that willingness to be open to other people as well as to ourselves, that is going to advance and deepen the conversation always and lay the foundation for true equity and true justice for all of us. So let's come to a close with just a couple minutes of deep breathing. Once again, sitting comfortably, breathing deeply in through the nose and out through the mouth, making yourself comfortable as I just did, with our bellies soft and relaxed, soft and relaxed. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth, focusing on the breath, on the word soft as we breathe in, and belly as we breathe out, and on our bellies being soft and relaxed. Becoming aware of thoughts and feelings and sensations as they arise, noticing them, and gently bringing our awareness back to soft belly. Okay, slowly, gently open your eyes. Let your attention come back in the room. See you next week. Bye-bye for now.